everybody, welcome to Office Hours with Dylan Hutchison, where we highlight the great people of the channel. I'm joined by one of the greatest, Matt Lee. Matt, how's it going, man?
Man, I'm humbled to be here. I swear I'll have to pay you next time I see you for saying that nicety. But, man, I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Things are good.
I won't charge you for that one.
Okay.
If you
freebie.
I charge Eric Bowles for it. That's because he mandated
fair.
that I say good things about him, which is very hard to do. No, I'm just kidding. Eric's a great guy.
I love Eric.
But no, I'm pumped to have you on here. You're one of those that I've learned a lot from in the space, even
thanks,
prior to knowing you formally. So this is gonna be fun. I'm having a good time. So,
awesome.
Matt, for those that don't know you, on the rare chance that they don't know you, tell us your origin story. Who is Matt Lee?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, I guess to really set the story straight and be honest, before I found technology, every 4 or so years, almost like clockwork, I would change entire careers, right? So I started at 19. I had my Series 7, 66, and LHVA, or Life Health Variable Annuities. So I was a stockbroker, worked under American Express Financial Advisors, or AFA, as a P1 advisor. And I did pretty well. Like, what I didn't realize at the time was that grandmas just thought it was cute that I was wearing suspenders and talking all financially. Because I was 19 years old, right? Like, what the hell was I even doing giving financial advice? But I digress. But I did that. I did pretty well at it. I ended up growing in that. And then ultimately got to my first real decision in my career life, which I think set the stage for everything I've ever done, which was I was forced in an ethical dilemma. I was working with a girl named Julia Gorgieva, and she was asking me. I became kind of a closer. I started to go and close deals for people, and I would take a percentage of the deal. And so I went with her to the University of Alabama, who had a medical school, and the head of that was this woman that needed several products. Even for HIPAA reasons, I won't get into what we were doing all total, but ultimately it was about $26,000 in GDC, or gross dealer concession. It was a good day. But it was a really good day for the dealer, the head of our department, right, a guy named Tim. And Tim, when I came back, it was GDC cutover. At that time, we were faxing, just to put it in perspective, we were faxing this in. And anyways, we were faxing in these, and I signed it on Florida forms in Alabama. And so we were going to miss GDC cutover. We needed to just wait and go back and see her, hat in hand, say, I'm so sorry, we made a mistake.
Yeah.
Let's re-sign all this, right? And he said, Matt, we can't miss GDC cutover day. If we do, I'll miss this bonus. She's already signed it once. Just sign it for her on the correct forms. I said, Tim, there's zero chance. I mean, I'm this kid,
man.
right? I'm being bullied by this adult. And I said, there's zero chance I'm doing that, Tim. I said, I'm not doing that. And he said, well, if you're not going to do that, you might as well just quit. I said, listen, I've got 2 weeks vacation coming up, and when I get back, I do fully intend to quit. And I did. I went on vacation, I came back, and then I left. And, and it was one of those things where, for me, I mean, I cried over it, but it was one of those things where it was ethically, I'm not willing to risk my licensure. I've just been told all these things that can happen to me in that situation. And I said, no, I'm going to follow the rules, damn it. And that is really kind of the way my worlds work. Now, since then, I've learned change the rules and try to drive change if you don't believe in them, and maybe skirt them from a directive, I suppose. But anyways, after that, I went into banking. I started as a banker and a personal bodyguard. I actually worked with a couple of people. Anyways, we'll get into that maybe another day. But
That's awesome.
I was blessed at that time to work through my jiu-jitsu studio to become a personal bodyguard. But Emmett Smith and George Foreman were the two that come in town in that area. But anyways, long story short, I went into banking. I left and went into mortgages. I left and went into buying gold, numismatic and non-numismatic gold, numismatic first, and then ran into a couple diamond dealers that stepped into my gold shop, and then traveled in the southern part of the United States buying diamonds or milli, 0.1 carat or below, batches of milli is what we were after. And so anyways, and then,
my gosh.
yeah, did a horrible stint in some very bad decisions and drugs and things that were really a bad decision for a few years, and almost died. And then decided to move and wound up in technology and said, hey, I want to be a technician. And it was really I just had a high enough IQ, a decent enough EQ, that over time I was always able to just pivot and do something different. Mm-hmm. The problem was with technology, and I think anybody that's ever stepped into this, is it was a trap. Have you ever seen the meme? It's a trap, right?
Yep.
Totally, it's a trap. And once I got in, it was so broad and so deep, I never got bored. I never got tired. There was never, and there still is never an end to the exploration in which I could go. I could still literally do this for the rest of my life, never run into malware analysis, or digging into memory forensics, or digging into IR, or digging into how technology works, or digging into identity management, or digging into, like, there's just so much, and it's so broad, and so I'm trapped, right? I've been trapped for years, because you can reinvent yourself in technology so many times over. So that's the origin. What happens, and the things that people might care about that are listening to this. I wound up as technician number 7 under Chris Hoos at probably one of the most amazing MSPs I've ever seen in my life, still to this day. Maybe there's a hint of being part of it, right? But of why.
No bias.
No bias, yeah, genuinely none. But, we grew that and then merged with 3 other like-minded MSPs to be one of the largest MSPs at that time, and certainly one of the largest that was fully integrated, that was trying to tackle doing things the exact same way with the same systems, scalably, at some security level. And, through a massive incident we had, through an acquisition, we kind of got a razor-hot sword to go build one of the most secure MSPs that I've still seen today. And I can say that not just with bias of love, but also from empiricism and definitions of things I've still seen and talking to hundreds and hundreds of MSPs since. So I think one of the interesting parts is, I've lost, I've been hurt, I've been in every role, I've carried every position, and that's me, man. And now because of that, I'm driven. My life mission is that, why does my hairdresser or the person that cuts my beard have to have a board of cosmetology, a place to go into, full training, full testing for something that's going to probably grow back a few times in life cycles before I pass away and go in this grave, right? So, yet I can go destroy a business with 0 licensure, run a business. It's like Carter's pills on a cart, right? Before there was some FTA regulation. I don't want to be too pejorative of the situation, but that's my thoughts anyways. Well, that was just the intro, so sorry.
No,
that's me. I'm Matt.
This is great. And that goes to one thing that I wanted to ask you about with your passion on educating and, more importantly, securing the SMB market. Historically, this has been an industry that is very underserved, very underappreciated as a market. How did you ultimately decide what market you wanted to spend time with at Iconic, or even your time at Pax8 thus far, where you built one of the most security-minded, most mature MSPs that we've seen? Why'd you choose the SMB?
I don't think you choose the SMB. I think the SMB chooses you.
I like it. I like it.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's kind of like Harry Potter in a hat, right? I feel. I think I wound up on Team SMB. I think for me, there's an aspect of, it's where I landed, I guess, if I'm honest, right? With Chris and his focus, it was SMB. And Chris's focus started even earlier than that, right? Chris was I think an old Nortel guy, right? Or Novell Networks, or one of the two, I don't remember. But anyways, Chris comes in and he said in his mission when he left Enterprise, when Enterprise was kind of in a downscaling, this would have been probably 2000 something maybe, I guess, because I came in 2011. But Chris basically said, I wanted to bring enterprise level security and capabilities down to the SMB.
Yes.
So it started with his mission. Once in that mission, there's still a scalability. You ask yourself why. 42% of the GDP in the United States is made up by that SMB. There's more populace in the SMB that are served than you know around you. If you look at every friend you know, you can almost bet they work for some extensibility of SMB. Almost bet, right? I mean, are there humans that work in enterprise? Yeah, 100%. There definitely are. It's a huge enterprise. That's why I call it an enterprise. It's the other 58% of our GDP. But just saying, you have to understand that you have this whole set of humans extremely below the poverty line. I'm trying not to tear up, man, but you have this whole set of humans that their entire ability to feed their family could be gone tomorrow by some stupid action, some extortion, some destruction.
Yep.
It just touched me. And I'll say it started, and maybe I will just go ahead and deal with it. It started when I was dealing with those companies that had been through their third ransom,
right,
that had been down, that hated us, that hated me as an extension of that had genuine feelings of not being able to pay their people. I mean, yeah. Why the SMB? It needs it, and it's scalable, and it can be done. And the other side of this coin, I guess, is the positive side. Bear with me. But the positive side is, if you start a company tomorrow, is there any chance that you have a server? Almost none. I mean, there's a couple verticals where you might decide that's true. There's a couple places you might have that. But in reality, if you're an SMB, And if you're in that space, even if you're a code producing entity, you're probably using function services, platform services, infrastructure as code, extensibilities in that nature, or if you're not, you should be. Right, the ability to move between infrastructure if you need to scale back to your own data center, to move out to a cloud. But if you're not, if you're a normal SMB and you're consuming, you have an identity. You extend that out into SaaS applications for the predominance of your world. And if you do it right, I can scale that. I can script every aspect of it. I can use an API to do every part of that. I can do a robotic process automation to set settings almost immutably. Right? I can set things to where I can say, if it changes, I know it changed, I know why it changed, I have some degree of a risk register. I can do that at scale, like massively. But on the same side of that, that means that if you take that whole Angry Birds kind of experience, meaning fire up Angry Birds and tell me how many times out of 100 you can't play Angry Birds. It's like the Waffle House index in the South, right? Like, how bad was a hurricane? How many Waffle Houses aren't opening and answering their phones, right? Like, that's your index, right? You know that index. And so think of that as the Angry Birds index for technology. And I don't know if, like, Angry Birds needs to sponsor me, first off. Like, if you're out there, Angry Birds anywhere, like, just go ahead and sponsor me for this. I use you all the time.
If Angry Birds is seeing this podcast, we win.
We've won? Already won?
I
okay.
don't need to post any more episodes. We're
We're just done. That's cool.
No,
but what I want to finish with on that is that means there's a commoditization happening in the SMB and the MSP around technology. If I can just fire up a Microsoft account, why is it that I need you? And I'm being super summative, and I think anybody technical, you could sit down with me and have this conversation. But really, I got it in 2018. I had moved a lot of my clients, three of our clients, I think at that point, 100-something clients, over to modern, as I called it, right? Azure AD-centric, using Intune to manage it, those things. They were all SaaS consumption, and they all fired me. You know why they fired me, Dylan?
Because you built them up to where they didn't need you anymore.
Everything worked, yeah. I just sent a laptop to Billy in Iowa, and he signed in with his username and his FIDO key, and he was done, right? Like that was it. Like it was done. And so, anyway, and then Autopilot would set up the device. Device was ready for all their apps. Apps were in a centric location. They could train that easily, right? Like that kind of stuff. So, you look at that as this chasm in my mind of like the have and have-nots. Mm-hmm. Everybody with brownfield technology is in this have-nots scenario where they have to deal with their brownfield technology and how they're going to deal with either securing it to the same level, which is really tough. And I'm not saying this is perfect, don't get me wrong, but for the SMB, it scales like crazy. And it solves the cybersecurity problem. It raises the tide, at least to the grand majority. If I can make it to where my MSP is going to guide you through setting up MFA in an automated way, I can bring on 50 of those companies and do that front baseline defense to get at least the boat with the holes not in it. Like, we don't have to have the motor functional yet. We just need to not drown today, right? Like, anyways, that's my thoughts. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dylan.
No, this is perfect, and actually it's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk to you about next with education and raising the tides. I mean, you just talked about where you got clients to the point where they were able to fire you, and their IT and security operations were in a pretty damn good spot. So from the time that I've known you, education is everything to you. In a beautiful way, everything you do, share, say is accessible to others. You're not one that like holds that secret sauce close to the chest, which is rare in this space, right?
You might just say I suck at monetizing. It might be a better way to say it.
No, but there's not a hidden agenda to your education and the stuff that you're putting out. Has that always been that way, or was there a certain moment in your career where that maybe changed your mindset where you're like, fuck, I've got all of this like bent up knowledge. I just need to share this with people.
No, that's such a great point. No, if I'm really, really candid, my favorite, and still to this moment, my happiest place was the tier 3 escapement technician, like where everything has gone wrong. Let's call Matt. And there was just a direct endorphin release from that, right? Like you got to be the guy that walked in and got all of the dopamine from that client going, you just saved my day. I'm back up. Oh my God, they couldn't get that backup to be restored, or they couldn't mount the VM afterwards, or we were domain tombstoned, or all the things that played out. Like I just have a memory. The way my brain works, I just index things and I can just go to them. Like they're just like nuggets. I don't know how else to describe it, right? And so like I was really good as a diagnostician. I still am. I work my way work my way out of a situation, right? And anyways, it I think that was actually the most happy I've been as a technician was that position. And I still think to this day I'm probably decent on a keyboard. But what I learned, I went and did a life plan. A guy named Rich, and went up to Clarinda, Iowa, with Rich. Went out to his farm, and we sat around. And the way he described it in this method, he was former HTG or is HTG, good friends with Arlen, right? All those guys in the channel, if you're familiar. Mm-hmm. And we paid. Chris Hoos paid like $4,000, which to me was just like absurd. I mean, you have to understand, I was making like 56 grand at this time, or 60. Like I was making nothing, right? I mean, everybody's worked for an MSP, and don't get me wrong, I did well by me. Chris Hoos was probably one of the most amazing humans you'll ever meet, and has really done well by me, for sure. But that notwithstanding, right? So I'm in like this $4,000 to go sit in a room for 2 days and talk about my life. Like, this is stupid. And I came out changed. I mean, it still sticks with me today. I still have the plans in the corner over there. But basically what the premise is finding your habu. And that stands for highest and best use. And for me, I had to face like this challenge of not getting the endorphins, but teaching drives their ability to succeed. And that was the premise. So, yeah, great question.
I like that. That's a really good kind of pivot point or kind of fork in the road moment. To where
good, because you keep making me tear up, and I'm going to quit this damn thing here pretty soon, Dylan.
I'm going to start sending, I'll start sending you tissues, I promise.
You might need to.
All right, I'll jump into a happier note then with
all right, good.
Community engagement and interacting with some of the just kick-ass people that we know in the channel. So this is, you and I have talked about this. This is something you've really always been engaged in. One key kind of factoid that I want to highlight, you were on over 25 partner advisory councils at one time, which is crazy and overly impressive. So why was the channel community not just interacting with the vendors you're working with, but also the other MSPs in the space? Why was that something you wanted to engage in and really dive headfirst into?
So let's talk about the origins of it, which I've already beleaguered you to death with. But in the beginnings of it, it was because selfishly as a company, we knew that if it took to change products went from something I could just make a decision of with Nicholas Herrera and Chris Hoos and go, boom, we're doing that. And Shane McCauley and I would get it done. To now, somebody needs to talk to integrations. Let's go ahead and talk to sales. Let's make sure accounting can actually skew this and bring this forward. Hey, can we also make sure that we have it ready for us to deploy in each of the 5 different orgs and make sure the geos understand that's not a day. That's like 6 months of analysis and onboarding and checking and then POCing and then integrating and then rolling. And so that took a long time. And to me, it was like, I wish the Suez Canal had come around when I was speaking about this, because to me, I didn't want my boat turned sideways in the Suez, right? I didn't want to be in a situation where my vendor was turning right and I was turning left and we didn't turn together. So I realized anybody I spent $1 million a year with, I wanted to be on their advisory. I just wanted a seat at the table. And so I got on a bunch of advisory councils. I started realizing the vendors were to varying degrees willing to listen, changed how I approached that and got instead involved with a lot of the product designers and product people, because product people got stuff done, right, at the end of the day. And I'll say that out there, mad shout out to my product people out there. But product people get stuff done, right? They're close enough to the code and development operations that they can influence that in their own way directly, along with their own missions, right? And so product people, and so that got me this understanding of like vendors are just trying to figure it out too. Like I don't know of any vendors. Okay, I won't speak of any vendors that just operate with malice, right? Most vendors that I know operate because they give a crap. They have a mission to solve. They want to make money. Don't get me wrong, but don't you? Right, and so I loved that. When I got involved with the vendors more and more, I also realized that there was just such a giant gap in our industry on the vendor side. I can't tell you how many times, Dylan, I was told, but Matt, you're the only one asking me for SSO. I don't give a shit. I'm asking with $1 million. Fine, I'll leave. Right, and I got to be that guy, and then that in some weird way, a combination of my personality, my passion, my mission, and then being on these advisory councils, I met my peers. and they respected me, and they tolerated my idiosyncrasies, and they allowed me to beat up the vendor. Because what I always had a thing of, Dylan, was I would be very publicly positive for the vendors I chose to work with. I would not besmirch them. I wouldn't go down the path of having a Reddit account and being that guy talking crap. I wanted to do two things. I wanted to say very positive things outwardly, partners of Continuum, just to say, here's what sucks. Here's what you're going to hate. Here's how you have to change your operations to be successful. Here's the things you're going to need. And here's what you're going to love. Yeah. Make a decision. And then when they would buy, they were happier. The vendor appreciated it, right? They knew what they were getting into and stuff they wouldn't say as salespeople. They never would go down the path of this is what sucks. And so I kind of lived in that world where I would fund Continuum publicly by helping drive their success. And I still carried that forward with all the other vendors, being very positive publicly, and then just beat the dog crap out of them privately. But then that, to my peers that were in those private meetings, I think gained a degree of maybe frustration with me sometimes, but respect for what I was after and what I was trying to do, right? And you know, anyways, I don't like to beat my own drum. I'm not that person, but I would say...
No, but it's important to highlight.
I think it dragged me into the community, and then I realized when I got into that community, to your point, just how many freaking rock stars we have, and just how many people that don't even know they're rock stars. And then there's this same understanding that nobody ever gets in trouble for being positive, right? Like, there, you know, one of the things Chris Hoos taught me, we were back a long ways here. We were going into this meeting of this client that I wanted to fire. I hated them. I was tired of them. We've all had it. And I was the lead engineer arguing all the reasons we needed to get rid of him. And all Chris would say to me is, Matt, we're going to go have a conversation. We're going to talk to him. Well, you're going to beat him up about this, and you're going to get him. Matt, we're going to go have a conversation. and like, I was so frustrated at the time. And, you know, I was a younger man, and I was certainly more passionately angered. But Chris was right. Like, everything he ever did in his life, he approaches with optimism. He's not dead. Like, he's not dead. He's good. He's still around. He's in Palm Springs. But anyways, you know, Chris always approaches with positivity. And so I took that as this kind of, now as we go forward, let's just approach things with positivity. Let's not get into the beating people up. And I ask this way, like, if you think about yourself as an MSP or as a vendor. As an MSP, you want to look down at your clients and say, they won't do MFA. They won't do all the things I'm asking them to do. I need them to pay for this. I need them to do these things. And they don't believe it. Doesn't make sense. I can't sell it. All the things, all those things. And as that same MSP, they look upward and go, my vendor's not secure. They're not doing all these things. I need a SOC 2. I need them to be better. I need to get this out of them. I need to understand that they're doing these things. I'm really terrified of my supply chain. And they look upward. But they never look inward. And I think that we have to stop approaching things with the negativity around. I think we have to look at things more pragmatically. And I think that that's what I try to drive in the community is just, let's be transparent. Let's be honest. Let's not jump into this giant thing. Because why? Because we all suck. Because this is something new. And I talk about it a lot in one of my speeches where I compare the auto industry. You know, the car was built in 1897, and yet we didn't have any security things built until 1966 with the first Motor Vehicle Traffic and Safety Act, Motor Vehicle Traffic and Safety. That's a long time. It's 80 years. Well, we're in the same period with technology. Mm-hmm. We had our first digital computer in 1930, and yet here we sit 80 years later, and we're just now getting a national cybersecurity strategy in 2018 and 2023. Like, we have no real legislation on board except for a couple of things that are early computer abuse acts and fraud acts that have been applied. But for the most part, it's just nothing, man. And so I think that's why my mission, those are some of the origins of my mission, and the community is how you get that done. How? We need to get a group of us that see it the same way, that start to drive towards a set of standards, that start to adhere to a set of standards. In my mind, that's Trustmark, right? And then we grow from that, and we start self-regulating. And then at some point, self-regulation becomes governed self-regulation. Mm-hmm. And then we're just like FINRA, right? And it starts in my early days. I was poisoned by the Series 7, but I'll be honest, it works. Why? It forced me to either quit or tell on my boss. It put me in a position that if I was a technician working at a company and I had to be regulated, just like an electrician, they're not going to put crappy wiring in the wall. They're going to leave, or they're going to tell on you. And just like there's an inspector at some point that checks those things, we need some degree of efficacy checking and validation. And I'm preaching towards the future, Dylan, and I know you're on board, but that's my life mission. And the where I get paid, how I survive, how I monetize, those things just seem to work out for me. And I don't usually gate anything off, to your point, to come back to full circle, I suppose. As much as I can, I just want to empower and drive success. And
No,
what's beneficial is at Pax8, like if you are successful as a company, then you sell more stuff. And if it's through us, we do well. So like there is a direct reason and argument for my existence at Pax8. But I'm blessed that they let me just go do it my way and educate. And they give me such long reins to just change what we're in and let me work as a subject matter student. I won't say expert, but student. And continue to change our world around us. So, yeah.
No, and I like the approach you just took, especially with Pax8. Everybody knows Pax8, great organization, all about empowering their partners and customers. There it is. And it goes back to something that you and I have talked about. We've talked about it with others as well, where we're not here to just have our MSPs sell more of our shit. We are here to make them a better business, which in turn sells more of our shit. And that's what it's all about.
It's fortuitous, right? Like,
exactly.
It is. I mean, it's like if I was selling car undercoatings, I don't know that I'd feel great about my life and be passionate. Not to say anything besmirching about the wonderful car undercoating industry. I love you, big undercoat. But, my point is that what you and I do, and even if we don't do it well, and even if we fail, or even if we're only 80% successful, let's say your company is only 80% successful, it's still better than zero. It's still an improvement in this world. It still has taken someone's chances of losing their livelihoods or having real challenges. And we don't know where this future goes, right? All I do know is extortion is extortion. And it'll always pivot. And if you want to talk about it, and I don't want to get in trouble with big blockchain, especially since there's a trial going on about who is actually Satoshi Nakamoto. But is that the only thing Bitcoin's really driven has been cybercrime. And how the money can be extorted out easily from us. I wouldn't say anonymously as they had hoped, but certainly easily.
Right.
Now there's not a green dot on every corner and some dude you have to interface with. I'm just literally taking out Bitcoin and getting it somewhere, right? Like there's an ingress egress point in cash.
It was really funny to look back on the past couple of years when we've seen the rise and fall of ransomwares and how often they're happening just as an industry, and then also triangulate that with the price of Bitcoin. So it's been funny. Go and look back at some of the Gartner reports and stuff like that about where.
Well, just from the probably I would imagine you could look at the amount of flow. Like I would almost even wager you could look back, and I've said this somewhere else, that a good majority of the market, the total addressable Bitcoin ins and outs, all the dollars in the market, I would bet a grand majority, that could even be argued as 2/3 majority, is related to cybercrime.
Completely
or crime
agree.
of some sort. I
completely agree.
And that would indicate why the bottom falls out is because you have this market drop. This is just because nobody's taking any payments right now.
Right. No, and I've told that to my friends and family,
gracious.
and they're like, Dylan, take off your tinfoil hat. What are you doing? I go, no, this is real.
I would wager there's enough volume in
here.
cybercrime between all of the sources of it, all of the extortions, all the different scams. I would wager there's enough of it. I mean, like, why does convenience stores, they give up ATM space? Why? Because they get paid for the ATM transactions. Why do they give up space for a Bitcoin machine? Because they know grandma is going to hobble in on her cane and give away her last $1,000 to some scammer in Bitcoin, right? Like that's why it's there, and they make money on it, right? And money drives our world. We're coin operated in a lot of ways. So, anyways, I don't know how we got off on this tangent, but it was a beautiful one. But yeah,
I like
anyways.
it. I do want to take a step away from work, away from technology, with something that has been really inspiring for me personally. You and Kat have been on a phenomenal fitness journey here lately.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that journey and how it's impacted you, your life, and I mean, are you getting back to your bodyguard days? Is that what you're going to? No, just kidding.
I'm definitely getting more stacked. Yeah,
I like it.
It's interesting. So to underpin the fitness goal, you have to understand why. That's always a case, right? And so the first why, I was 350 pounds, Dylan. I was a size 58 waist. Like, it was giant, right? And I was working with Chris, and I kind of made this realization, like, and I won't say who said it first or what, but is that people don't want to work with somebody that's not taking care of themselves. There was this understanding of just, you got to take care of yourself, and if you're that big, take care of yourself. And that was the argument. And I don't want to offend anybody that has some medical condition that puts them there, but mine was sitting, being sedentary, and not eating. And I mean, eating right. Let's just be straight up, not working out and eating right. And anyways, and so I started working on it then. I started bicycling. This was like 2017, 2016, 2015, something like this. And I started bicycling, and I rode thousands and thousands of miles, and I got down to this like stasis of 255 or so, right, where I just kind of was great. So I'm almost 100 pounds lighter, right? I'm down to a 38, right? Like I'm probably the most in shape fat guy most people will meet. Like I can do a 100-mile bicycle ride that with Jason Slagle last year too.
Oh yeah.
And so, but I really realized that this year I wanted to get in real shape, and that I'm getting in my 40s. I'm we all die, and I just want to have more years where I can go and do things. And along with that, Kat's father passed away right before the pandemic of cancer, and his whole life he worked. He didn't have any money, which Kat and I are blessed to have, in the banks, right? Some money's in the bank. He wanted to do this adventure touring riding. He'd always kind of wanted to do that. And he wanted to do that, and he'd always watch it and sit and look at it as he had COPD. He never got to do it, and then he passed away. And so Kat and I kind of decided together that we were going to do that for him. So we bought dirt bikes. We started getting better at it. And in the same conjunction, I need to be in that kind of riding shape. Like, it's probably a pretty good idea.
It's hard.
So we've done some test rides, and I need to be lighter. And so mid last year, we met Paul Vetter. We know Paul, but Paul really kind of convinced us to do this 75 hard. And it has been magical, because part of it is I've probably had a beer a night or more for 20 some odd years, right? Like I was a beer or a scotch or a wine or a whiskey. Like I'm gonna have a drink. Like it was just part of the evening ritual, and I've never not. And for starting January 2nd this year, Kat and I stopped alcohol. We drink a gallon of water a day. That's why I've got my handy-dandy amazing Lion Guard bottle that they gave me, as well as all my dope stickers like Mr. Rogers with the Fafo shoe.
I like it.
Got that at Gurkhan, by the way. But yeah, but I drink my gallon of water a day. Kat and I do 2 45-minute exercises a day, 3 hours apart. One must be outdoors. We also do 10 pages of reading nonfiction a day. And then we have to take a progress picture every day of where we are in our journey and log and catalog that. So Kat and I have done that now for 37 days. I'm down, I think since December, I'm down 25 or so pounds, something like that. And I tore my MCL and tore a ligament in my ankle, which I get to get some MRIs next week or so. Yeah, next week. But I've still made 2 miles a day, walking and hobbling in my hobbling in multiple cities around the world as I travel and speak. But it's been amazing. I feel sharper than I've ever felt. If I'm candid, I didn't expect that. Like I figured a drink or two a night, even 6. Like, am I really going to be that much different? And the answer is yes, 100%. Like I cannot overstate how much better I feel, and even to the extent that Kat and I are probably going to do this until we get to our ideal weight, which will not be 75 days. It'll probably be something more like 180 days, or more. But I have found that it satisfies some of my OCD. It is really nice to check things off again. As an engineer, you got that. Did I move this VHD? Yes. Did I do this P2V migration? Check. Did I implement? Like it's beautiful, right? You get this like amazing lineage there. So it's been good. I've been really enjoying it. Kat has too. She's doing just probably better than me. I think she's down like 9 pounds, but 9 pounds to her is not the same as this frame. So yeah, it's been good, man. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I've felt great.
Of course. It's something. It's awesome. Something that I can tell that you are very proud of. That you and Kat are very proud of. It's been awesome to follow along. And then Paul Vetter is just an absolute animal. That guy kicks ass,
Dude,
man.
Right? But he started where I am, and I think that's the point of why he is Paul Vetter. Like if I'm not to get too esoteric here, but like I think if you were to unpack why is Paul is Paul in some degree in part to this program and going through what we're going through, and to me it's not hard. I don't find it hard. I think it is just something that, for me, somebody asked me in a podcast not too long ago, I think it was for Neon Cobra, and he said, Matt, what do you want? One thing, what would you describe about yourself when accomplishing a goal or anything like that? And I said, man, I would chew through a wall to accomplish a goal in front of me. right? Like I genuinely would move heaven and earth to try to accomplish whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish, and it's just the way I function, right? But anyways, yeah, tangential, I suppose. But,
I like it. So
yeah.
before we wrap up, and this doesn't have to be related to technology or cybersecurity, anything like that, what are some key lessons that you can share for MSPs or vendors looking to get involved in the community? Maybe it's goal-oriented, maybe it's being honest, open, transparent, vulnerable, etc. What are some lessons you can share?
I think I'd start with be yourself. I know that's such a cop-out, but I think I took such an early lesson on that. Be you, right? Like, don't try to be somebody else. Be you. Be natively you. That's and if you natively you sucks, then different conversation. So maybe we have to figure that out, which maybe goes into my real next point, which is the best compliment / insult I ever got in my life was from a guy named Benno, and I'm still to this day don't know if he meant it as a compliment or an insult. I feel insult, but we'd always butted heads, and Benno's brilliant, probably still to this day one of the smartest people I've ever met, at least in applying science to something. We were building this massively architected backup solution, and we needed it to be petabyte scalable, terabyte scalable, right? We needed or petabyte and above scalable, so not terabyte. But, and so he was doing the design engineering on it, and he'd always been perfect as the enemy of good as a person, right? There was no middle ground. There was no getting to where we needed. Well, I don't need a petabyte tomorrow. I need a petabyte in 6 months. Can we build something that gets me down that path? Mm-hmm. And that kind of thing. And he looked up one day and he says, Matt, I get you. And it was after he had convinced me of something and I'd changed my mind and was now on his side and driving his point forward. And he said, Matt, you hold extremely loosely to passionate beliefs. And I think the point I took as a positive was, if you give me new data and it supplants what I believed or the data that was incorrect before, mm-hmm. I'm willing to change gears. I don't mind being wrong. And I guess you could TLDR that down to just don't be okay being wrong.
Yeah.
Admit when you're wrong. Move forward. Like, these are the basics of life. It's how you have a relationship in general. This isn't new rocket science, right? But I think that's the thing you have to continue is, can you be wrong? Can you find ways to be wrong? Can you learn from the community? Can you learn where it needs to be changed? And when you're not wrong, can you shape, educate, and empower? Right? And I think that's the same balance. They're playing in the same violin, right? It just different strings. So I think that's my thought on it.
I like that. Being able to know when, yes, you're very passionate about something, but maybe it was misrepresented to you prior, and you're like, oh.
Or maybe I was stupid. We can just say it. I'm all right with it.
I'll always be the one to say that. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'll be the first one to say that. But then being able to craft a different viewpoint and really understand and appreciate where other people are coming from. But then also on the flip side of that, when you're the one that is right and the one presenting that new data, you're not sitting there, banging your chest of like, man, I was right. Screw all of you guys that thought I was wrong. But then empowering them to maybe take it a step further with like, okay, now that we're all on the same page here, how can we move this forward?
Yeah, good call out. And if you think about it, it speaks towards, kind of this social proof mentality, right? So social proof is kind of this concept, if I'm bastardizing it, I'm sorry to some great British person in the 1980s, but it's this concept that I saw on a TED Talk once, and the woman was saying, if you took away the ability to know what culture was around you, and yet you still had the language, and you were dropped off in this culture, pretty quickly, if everybody went to church, you'd be at church. Pretty quickly, mm-hmm. if X, you'd be at Y. And so what's interesting about that is that states that we just want to belong, right? Like, we as humans just want to belong, at least most of us. Some of us wired a little different, I got you. But most of us want to belong in the grand scheme of things. And so when you take social proof, it states that the way we even approached phishing is wrong. Right? Because we would go and say, ha, Dylan failed. He clicked the link. Ha, 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 ha. And instead say, hey, 92% of you didn't click that link. Like, y'all are crushing it. Now Dylan wants to not click the link.
Correct.
But if I beat Dylan with it, Dylan might have fun just clicking the shit out of every link he sees anyway, just to be that guy.
Yep.
Right? And so it's about approaching things with positivity and about making things empowerment, not about, I got you, haha, look at me, I'm amazing. And I think the challenge is that capitalism rewards the latter. But I think long-term capitalism rewards the former. And if you look at somebody like Huntress, a great example, and I love Kyle Hansloven and all the team over there, and Becky and oh gosh, now I'm in trouble. Tracy and like and oh gosh, I can't stop.
Now
you know what I mean?
we gotta go down the roster.
No, I'm not doing it. Austin Roberts. Like I don't want to get in trouble, but I love all of them, right? Like all of them. But the point is,
Great
like
team.
they did it first by giving and giving and giving and making people feel heard and I got the call from Kyle, right? Like I'm literally a recipient of that giving. And during my incident, you know, Kyle was a key part of that. He saved us a lot, probably 1,000 computers. Mm-hmm. So anyways, short story, I guess, is that the ones that get it and give and are humble and can grow probably will win in the long term. But the flashy people get the subscriptions and the paid and the things. And so I think, there's a balance. I mean, this goes all the way back to your first point, right? I've never really monetized the things I do. I just am in this.
It goes back to your core mission and what you're doing it for.
Yeah, the mission, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like it. So for people that want to reach out to you, understand more about your story, take advantage of a lot of the resources that you have out there. I will say, if people have been following along on LinkedIn, you've got some really cool CIS stuff coming out. How do people reach out to you best and learn more?
Yeah, it's LinkedIn, right? Like hit that connect button if you want to connect. You can follow. LinkedIn's great. Cybermatlee.com is also a great resource. If you're there, I promise I'll put some more effort into it this year, y'all. It's been me. I'm just a terrible human. And then also, really, the Pax8 Cloud YouTube channel is a great one as well. We have a weekly show with the game, and I really have an intention of trying to get people like Jen Easterly on this year and have some good conversations about things. So, there's a lot of ways, I guess, to find me. But basically, LinkedIn's probably the best to reach out.
Love it. Best place to start.
Yeah, man.
Well, Matt, thank you very much for jumping on. This has
Thanks
been
for having
a
me.
blast. Thank you very much.
I'll send you the bill for making me tear up twice, and it is too. I did count. So, yeah, we're good.
I like it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, cool, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.